let's get into one big story that you may have missed today, because the International Day for People of African Descent, set aside by the United Nations, is celebrated for the first time today, the 31st of August, 2021. The United Nations, through the observance, aims to promote the extraordinary contributions of the African diaspora around the world and to eliminate all forms of discrimination against people of African descent. Joining me for a chat to this is the managing partner at GBS Africa, Agnes Gitau. Agnes is a Kenyan-born African diaspora based in London. A good evening to you, madam. Welcome to the show. What are some ways in which diaspora Africans have contributed to global development?
The contribution of the African diaspora both to their countries of origin and destination countries is huge, contributing to both growth and development of these economies through human capital, intellectual capital, political and economic capital. So huge impact in the global societies, and hence the recognition by the UN today to celebrate Africans in the diaspora of African descent living in the diaspora.
Again, what you have, what about the contributions of Africa diasporas to the continent itself in terms of political, economic issues, development and all that?
Austin, where do I begin? I'll give you an example closer to home where you are. Nigerians in the diaspora contribute at least 4% to your national GDP. In the last 3 years, they have collectively raised about $65 billion to Nigerian economy and to the entire African continent. The African diaspora contribute at least over $60 billion annually through remittance and savings. So huge economic contribution. There are resources that need to be tapped and embraced if we are to get much more from them. So huge contribution. And I'm really the United Nations, following in the footsteps of the African Union, are exploring ways of how to engage this community so that they can leverage on the potential that they are.
Interesting. Tell me about some of the key challenges that diaspora Africans still face today and what needs to change moving forward.
So we need to move away from looking at them as just a resource we can tap into when we need remittance or economic contribution. We need to start embracing the diaspora both in the countries where they come from, but also in the host countries. You know, at home they're viewed as runaways, people who left home and never came back, and where they've settled, they're looked as immigrants. You know, people who are unwelcome. Yet, by miracle, we still continue to accept their remittance. Host nation continue to receive their taxes. Host nation continue to receive their contribution through economic and human capital. So we need to find ways of embracing the African diaspora, working with them, and sort of channeling all these experiences they have to build economies and alleviate poverty and build cohesive societies.
Interesting, but again, do you think African leaders are paying enough attention to and integrating the diaspora population as should be required for policy making, critical investments, and so on? Like you said, it's not just about remittances, looking to soak in what you folks are sending back home, but involve you in the brick and mortar issues on the continent. For example, diaspora election or voting is still a very big issue in a number of African countries, including Nigeria. The diasporans can vote.
Yes, certainly, Boston. It's a similar case as in my country, from my country, Kenya, where diaspora have constantly tried to get involved in the political process, but governments are a little bit wary. I think for politicians, they are wary that the African diaspora may influence local politics. But you're absolutely right. There has been some movement by some governments. A good example is your country, Nigeria, where they commissioned the Nigeria Diaspora Commission, I think that's what it's called,
Yes.
in 2017. And so there's been initiative by Africans, governments and African leaders, I think following on from the African Union, where they recognize diaspora as a unit that need to be part of Africa's developmental story or Africa's growth story. But there needs to be much more. I think politicians need not to be afraid of the Africans diaspora. We need to embrace them, work with them more, and help them to work with them to try and address the challenges that the continent faces.
Don't get scared of the diasporans. If you can take their dollars, then you can as well allow them to vote and all of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, what is fair is fair. I think what is fair is fair. Thank you so much for your time this evening. Agnes Gitau, Managing Partner at GBS Africa in London. Thank you so much about talking the first International Day by the United Nations for our people of African descent.